In a world that's always throwing curveballs, how do you steer your organization not just to safety, but toward real success? Well, today, we're becoming navigators. We're going to chart a course through the wild, unpredictable waters of risk management.
I want you to picture every organization out there as a ship on a great voyage. And the world around it, it's this vast, chaotic ocean. You know, storms can pop up out of nowhere, but so can these amazing, favorable winds that lead you to totally new discoveries. So the real question isn't how do we avoid the ocean? That's impossible. It's how do we get really, really good at sailing it?
So, first things first, before we can navigate this sea, we have to understand what it's made of. It all starts with getting what risk really is.
And this right here is a huge piece of the puzzle. We tend to think of risk as just bad stuff. And yeah, sailing into a hurricane is obviously a threat. But choosing a faster, unproven trade route, that's also a risk, but it's one with a massive potential payoff. Then you have what are called pure risks, like a fire in the engine room. There is absolutely no upside to that. So the trick is seeing both sides of the coin.
Okay, so to sail these seas, we're going to need a map and the right tools, and that means we have to start by learning the language of the navigator.
All right, let's get one thing straight right away. The difference between risk and uncertainty. Risk is like a storm you can see on the radar. You can use data, you can look at economic indicators, and you can estimate the probability of a market downturn. But uncertainty, that's like a mythical sea monster suddenly bursting out of the depths. It's totally unpredictable, totally unquantifiable. Think about a brand new game-changing technology nobody saw coming. A great navigator has to be ready for both.
And that's where something called the risk profile comes in. Just think of it as your ship's unique, personalized map. It's the big picture view of all the potential storms and all the favorable currents that are specific to your journey, combining every major risk you're facing.
So what kinds of things do we actually draw on this map? Well, here are some of the usual suspects, the common sea monsters and weather patterns. You've got your business risks, like your customers suddenly wanting something new, financial risks, like credit drying up, operational risks, which are basically things breaking down on your own ship, and of course the big one, strategic risks, like taking a major hit to your reputation. Knowing all the dangers out there is one thing, but what about the ship itself? I mean, a fantastic map doesn't do you much good if your boat is full of holes. So the next step is making sure your organization is actually built to handle the journey.
So here's a big question. Just how much of a storm are you willing to sail through to get where you're going? That question defines your risk appetite. Are you a nimble little speedboat built to take chances for huge rewards? Or are you a massive, heavily armored cargo ship that puts safety above everything else? That decision, which is usually made at the very top, really guides everything that comes next.
But hey, the best designed ship in the world is just a floating piece of metal without a great crew, right? That's where risk culture comes in. A strong risk culture means that every single person on board, from the captain all the way down to the deckhands, gets the risks, knows what their job is, and feels like they can actually speak up and act. They're the ones who make the ship sail. And how do you organize that crew? Well, usually through what's called the 3 lines of defense. Your first line is the frontline crew, the operations team that's dealing with risks every single day. The second line is the officers, your risk and compliance folks who make sure everyone is following the right procedures. And the third line? That's the internal audit, an independent group that comes on board to check the entire system, top to bottom, to make sure the ship is truly seaworthy.
All right, so our ship is resilient, the crew is well-trained, and our map is charted. Now it's time for the fun part. It's time to actually steer the ship. Let's look at the day-to-day process of navigation.
Every good navigator is in a constant cycle, a routine. First, you identify the risks. You spot the clouds on the horizon. Second, you assess them. Is that a little rain shower or a full-blown hurricane? Third, you control it. You steer the ship, you adjust the sails. And finally, you monitor and review, always checking your position, always looking for new information. And then, the cycle starts all over again. Now that control step, step 3, that's where the big decisions get made. When you're facing a risk that looks like a threat, you've got 4 main choices. You can tolerate it, treat it, transfer it, or terminate it. But what if it's an opportunity? Well, then you have a 5th option. You take it. Let's see what that looks like in the real world.
Here's how it breaks down. You can treat a cybersecurity risk by, say, installing a better firewall. You can transfer a financial risk by buying insurance, basically paying someone else to worry about it. You might terminate a project that's just not working to eliminate that risk entirely.
Or you could see a gap in the market and decide to take the opportunity by launching a bold new product. It's all about picking the right move at the right time.
But here's the thing about the sea, it is never static. The maps are constantly being redrawn, and any good navigator will tell you that the biggest dangers are often the ones you can't quite see yet, the ones just starting to form beyond the horizon. So what's out there today? Oh boy, we're talking about massive, complicated challenges. The incredible fragility of our global supply chains, the unbelievable speed of social media storms and fake news, the total disruption from things like AI, the shock of global pandemics, and of course, the slow-motion crisis of climate change. These are the new sea monsters of our time.
And the really crucial thing to get is that none of these things exist in a bubble. They are all deeply interconnected. A supply chain problem in one part of the world can set off a financial crisis in another, which is then amplified by a panic on social media. The waves travel farther and faster than they ever have before.
Which brings us right back around to the whole point of our voyage. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Risk management isn't about ticking boxes for a regulator. It's not about just battening down the hatches and hoping you survive the storm. It is the art of navigation. It's a tool that lets you sail confidently and safely right towards your destination, your biggest goals.
So we'll leave you with this to think about. In an ocean that is always shifting, where new currents are forming and old lands are sinking beneath the waves, what's the real danger? Is it hoisting the sails and venturing out into the unknown, or is it dropping anchor, standing perfectly still and just hoping the world doesn't change around you? For every navigator, that's a choice you have to make.